We've all watched The Wizard of Oz. Dorothy and Timmy the dog followed the yellow brick road, and one of the characters they met along the way was the Cowardly Lion. The lion would roar, but at the first bit of retaliation would back down. Or we all remember that little weasel from our younger years who was always seen by the side of the cock of the school. You know what the cock of the school is? The lad who could beat everybody else up at
Oh
school.
yeah, yes, yes, yeah,
We called him cock of the school when I was a lad. But when these weasels were on their own, they would walk in the shadows, frightened about what would happen if they met somebody who didn't like them. This is basically Europe. This personality is basically Europe. Europe has fallen before it has even started. It's folding, as they say in America, like a cheap suit. The European members of NATO have been hanging on to the coattails of the US for far too long. And with one decision made by the US President Donald Trump recently has exposed just how weak and feeble Europe is without US backing. It's almost embarrassing.
yeah.
So Trump decided that without guarantees, the US will hold back support for Ukraine and put the onus on NATO's European partners. Do you remember the likes of Grant Shapps beating his chest when the Conservatives were in power? Do you remember Macron threatening to send troops into Ukraine along with the Allies? The unwavering support of the UK for Ukraine, saying your fight is our fight. The support of the Germans till the end. All this seems to have vaporized. When Zelensky did it on himself, because Trump, he said that he wanted $500 billion back. Trump said he sent $200 billion to Ukraine. And Zelensky, he said to the US president that he had only received 70 of the $200 billion that was sent to him.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if Trump thought that Zelensky is trying to take the piss, right? Or if the Ukraine is so corrupt that Zelensky was telling the truth. Either way, saying that you only received 70 billion when they sent 200 is like waving a red flag in front of Donald Trump,
Yeah.
who's like a bull.
Yes.
So the US decided nothing more without guarantees. So he's after these rare earth minerals that are that are underground in Ukraine. Let Europe take up the slack and now Europe is quivering in the boots, claiming they don't have the resources. The UK is spending 1% of the GDP on their troops. Has got quasi almost no uh, foreign. They said that they have ammunition to last a month in a foreign war. Germany, half of their tanks that they have in Germany are inoperable. Over half, actually.
Yeah.
You know, and Germany is at the end of their tether when it comes to the economy. So the European nations can't even keep up their 2% obligations in their dues, except for Poland. Poland has gone over and above. Never mind the 5% Trump is suggesting, but they were fine shouting and waving their arms about when the US was footing the bill. Make no mistakes, Germany was not giving Ukraine money. It was lending Ukraine money and they'd want it back with interest after the conflict.
Yeah.
Now it seems they'll be at the end of the queue as the US has its eyes on the rare earth minerals. Meanwhile, Warhawk Michael Bolton is, even after he's had his security clearances removed in the US, trying to muster up a conflict before it's even started by saying Putin is planning to invade Europe, mainland Europe, in 2030. Where he gets his information from, I imagine he imagines.
Oh, yeah.
I think that Bolton must be lobbying for an arms manufacturer. But these old grinders who seem to thrive on the fear and misery of others, like Bolton, are coming to the end of their careers, as the new kid on the block is promoting peace. That's Trump.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Who would have thought it? During Trump's first administration, it was the only time the US had not been involved in a foreign conflict for decades. Note that Bolton said in 2030 is when Putin is going to invade Europe. Trump would be out of office by then. And if Bolton's still alive, he can try and carry on where he left off.
Right.
That's my take on it. Away you go.
Right. Okay. I remember studying at school, particularly after the First World War, and where it was said, the Americans said, you Europeans don't seem to be able to play peacefully and nicely without our involvement. Here's the League of Nations. Yeah. Well, the League of Nations worked out well. Yeah. Forget the problem with Germany and the reparations. So obviously that got disbanded. We had the United Nations that was meant to prevent all these conflicts. Yeah. So yeah, and then we're meant to have other things. NATO was meant to keep in check enemies of freedom, or whatever else you want to call it. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, okay, maybe there was a time when Russia was a threat to mainland Europe. There was probably a time when, yeah, that was the case. I don't see it as now. But, yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely true. It does appear that Europe, certainly financially, does rely on the United States of America. I remember the comments that Trump made before about things that, you see, the trouble is, the way I see it in the world and what's happened recently with Trump and withdrawing or threatening to withdraw funding and things is that everybody wants the US to pay for or heavily contribute for everything and then take the mickey out of it all. Yeah. You alluded to that just now. Now, if I was an American, and I'm not, so, and America has a lot of failings in the world with its foreign policy and has had in the past, but we won't live in the past. Trump is a guy who looks in the present. He looks at the balance sheets at the bottom of his current spreadsheets. Yeah. Not the ledgers from 40 years ago. He looks now, here and now. Yeah. And he's looking, well, what am I paying for? And yeah, he's not running a country. He is a chief executive officer or the managing director, CEO of USA Incorporated.
Yep.
Okay, that might sound very cold and everything else. He's balancing the books. Yeah. He wants to know where he's hemorrhaging money and what he's getting back in return for any even hemorrhaged money. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll put that down to expenses. If I book this person a meal, are they going to give me a job back in return? Okay. So yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of dynamics. The way that he's playing it is actually nobody can accuse Trump of lying, whether you not agree with him or not. Okay. And being impartial, yes, there's a few things, but he does seem to have grown in the past 4 years since leaving office. He saw the previous term what was going on. As he said the most historical interview, and I didn't watch it all, you did, was the Joe Rogan interview he gave. I think that's one of the most historical interviews ever given in recent times by a US president. Yeah. And I'm not suggesting for a moment that Trump is going to be the greatest of all time. We sure the jury will be out on that for many years. But he outlined everything, and he says, I'm going to put my own people in place, as an managing director will. they're not even people that agree with it. He would prefer people that will tell him the truth. Yeah. And yes, Mr. President, I don't think that's a good idea because of this, and come with the receipts. Could you imagine Elon Musk being a pushover, for example, who comes to accounts? Yeah. All Elon Musk is doing a massive electronic audit. He understands this. Okay, he's employing 18-year-old kids who are probably not very sociable people, but understand their way around a keyboard and in a computer system. They've been accused of being hackers. They're not. I don't think. Let's put it that way. I don't know. I don't think. They seem to be getting hold of things that, yeah. But I'm not making any allegations there. It's going to be interesting. At some point, somebody's got to hack into so many systems or legally get a warrant to hack into systems to find out what the hell is going on. Okay. When we talk about Ukraine, we'll get back to the crux of it. Before this war all kicked off, Ukraine was regarded as one of the most corrupt countries in the world.
Well, that's right.
In the world, not in Europe, in the world. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to start looking at figures and all that. It's just what I know off the top of my head. And suddenly, oh yeah, the minute the country invades, it's all going to change. The person at the top are going to act differently. They're going to become very patriotic and accept every bit of coin, every dollar that they get to fight a good fight.
Or to the cause. Yeah.
Or give to their favourite charity. You make the decisions which way you think it will be. Yeah. Zelensky's probably the honest broker, the honest person, not honest broker, the honest person here when he says, I haven't seen the money. Yeah.
I'm not so sure, when it comes to that little discussion, I think that Zelensky, he knows an awful lot of where the money is. It's just that he's not saying. And it could well be that he's basically saying to Trump, I only got 70 billion because Trump's wanting all that money back.
Yeah.
And Zelensky tries it on and said, well, I only got 70 billion. I didn't get 200 billion. He's thinking in his little mind that he's only got to give him back the 70 billion, and the 130 billion that's left over, he's got a little bit more freedom there. He's got more wriggle room to line his pockets after the fact.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yes, the big boss wants his dough back, and the little guy, the street trader, hasn't got it. It's kind of we're sending the boys round. Now, I said in a podcast a while ago when we mentioned about Ukraine, we've mentioned Ukraine a few times in our podcasts, that Ukraine will not be owned by the Ukrainian people, however it ends for them. Yeah. If so, like Russia do get hold of Ukraine, which I don't believe Russia actually wants. I don't know. How do I know? If Mr. Putin wants to come on his podcast and explain what he's thinking.
I think I know what the deal is going to be.
Yeah.
And I'll explain to you. It first came into sort of the piece of the jigsaw began to fit together when I remember that a U.S. senator from the U.S., Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
He said that you've got to keep sending money to Ukraine because of the rare earth minerals. He said there's more than $1 trillion worth of rare earth minerals below the ground. Right. So Trump is saying to Ukraine, we want 500 billion of your rare earth minerals if we help you win.
Yeah.
Right. I'm sure that Trump's going to say to Putin, we'll leave you with the ground that you've got.
Yes.
And then what we can do is we can split the spoils with the rare earth minerals. You either sell it to us really, really cheap, or we just split it 50-50 anyway.
Whatever the deal. Yeah.
So if Russia wins, Trump wins. If Ukraine wins, Trump wins.
Yeah.
Either way, or rather the US wins.
Yeah.
So either way, the US is going to come out smelling the roses.
Well, they get their money back at least.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And some, plus some.
Yeah.
Because he was wanting 500 billion, not 200 billion.
Yeah. I mean, as regards, and we're both Europeans, and we've both kept saying, and is our loyalty with Western Europe. The Western Europeans walked into this, the politicians did. us on the
Yeah,
ground
of course,
knew it
of
was going
course,
to happen. Yeah,
of
the man,
course.
I had conversations with Germans and other people. We all knew that something was going to happen in Eastern Europe. Whether or not,
Yeah.
I mean, okay, none of us love Putin. Let's put it that way. Um, I'm not someone that subscribes to hate all Russians, because I think Russia, if we could actually live, coexist with them, would be a big benefit to Europe. The way they do technology, their minerals, and everything else they've got in that whole region. Yeah. Um,
A niece of mine, she studied in Russia.
yeah.
She studied medicine in Russia.
Mm.
She said it's great.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know people. I mean, you've only got to look at some of the recent video footage that has come out on people's mobile phones. It's a lovely place.
Yeah.
Hardly any violence. Oh yeah, I've even seen one. Yeah, I mean, they don't stage things there. I know they've got a very, very
But
strict.
it's a macho
Yeah,
society,
yeah, okay, yeah, yeah,
right? It's
and
a very macho society. So violence, that comes second nature,
well,
especially when they organize it, because
yeah,
sometimes they have
yeah,
fisticuffs just to have fisticuffs,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Well, they're a different breed. I mean, they claim some of them claim to still be the original Vikings, but yeah,
The
that's
fisticuff,
tenuous.
that
Yeah,
having these physical fights, they have to keep warm somehow.
yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, but the equally so the police authorities, the security authorities are equally as tough. So let's
Yeah,
keep it. They sometimes let them get on with it and go and collect the bodies. Yeah.
that's right. Yep, yep, of course.
But yeah, it's a yeah. Getting back to it, yeah, I agree with you. I think Trump is trying to broker a deal. He's been trying. The trouble is, Zelensky. It must be frustrating, and I don't love Trump. I can see a lot of failings in his character, but um, and yeah, different things he does. It's not going to be beneficial for Western Europe. Western Europe had the opportunity some time ago to talk to Zelensky, try and get Putin and Zelensky together, or should have been pushing for this. Instead, it was the war hawking, as you said. It was never in our interest to have this conflict continue, yet we seem to want to keep feeding it. Yeah. That doesn't mean I agree with the attacking of Kiev or anything else, but um, Trump has actually reached out. He said to Putin, basically, I mean, it wouldn't have all been one-way traffic. He said to Putin, "You're either going to have an agreement or find out what could happen."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
it basically saying to Putin, you can have all this money,
mm,
or you can have nothing.
yeah. Yeah. And you will. Yeah.
There's not much you can argue about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. There'll be a lot more body bags going back to Russia than you could ever dream of. Because let's just face it. When the Americans decide to go in with their overkill policy, they're going to hit you with you do not know what. Yeah. And yeah, I know there's a threat of nuclear. I think we're still a long way away from a nuclear war.
He doesn't need to. If push
Yeah.
comes to shove in the US and Russia, the US just need to send all the troops in,
Yeah.
and the unless Russia asks China and North Korea to send in more.
I don't think China will want to get involved in it. I mean, Putin. Sorry. Trump has already said to China, "Can you have a word with Putin?" I believe
Yeah.
that's what happened. Yeah. I mean, if you want to seem good on the world stage, China, see, you have a word with your mate there. Yeah, just tell him what might just happen. China will be well aware. I mean, China won't. I still think that China will avoid a one-to-one conflict with the US, let
Of
alone the
course.
world.
No,
They're not
no.
ready. They might have numbers, but they don't
As
have.
as long as the leaders
Mm,
in position now
mm,
are in position now,
yeah,
Xi, Putin, Trump, it's
yeah.
going to be peace all round.
I mean, that's what I made a point to someone the other day. If you replace Putin, is probably still the best leader at the moment to have in charge of Russia, a pragmatist. I know that sounds odd. Yeah, it's not a love of it. You could get somebody who's really, really is crazy there if there's a power vacuum, somebody that's power hungry. And then you'll see divisions in Russia. You'll see absolute craziness in the whole region, and the whole of Eastern Europe will implode. Yeah. Um, yeah. And Yeah,
I'm sure that Putin, on his days off, is a very nice man.
I think you look at his eyes. He's a cold warrior. He's the ultimate cold warrior. I mean,
He has a day off.
I don't think I'd want to play cards with him. Yeah, I wouldn't want to upset him in a bar fight.